Good evening and welcome to the Town of Rockland Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. Please stand and join us to the Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Duffy, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at www.youtube.com/WRPSRockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements, National Grid donation, $2,500 for Rockland Teen Adventure Program. Jean Blaney? How are you, Jean?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
So, I just wanted to publicly thank National Grid. We recently received a donation, not physically in hand yet, but for $2,500. I gave National Grid a list of potential places where they could donate, and they chose the Rockland Teen Adventure. So I'm working with the middle school, Cheryl Shipper and her team, to come up with the best use for this money. There are a lot of teens that don't get to go to summer programs like we have, or for that matter, that are in a lot of other places. They get kind of left at home and in front of video games, and where the Rockland Teen Adventure is outdoors. We go to field trips twice a week, and then Mike Doyle, who's our director, he has some great field games, and we do arts and crafts, and it's just a good time. So when I spoke with Cheryl, she was super excited, and I know that they're working really hard, and we will get with National Grid shortly to receive the check from them. I also wanted to thank Adele Leonard from the Rockland Public Schools. I know that everybody knows that Adele does free lunch during the summer for the kids, but I think what they don't know is that she works with us to get grants for our gardening club. So we're able to, as a result of the grants, we're able to keep our prices down low. So we got a $1,200 donation that was submitted by Adele, and so this summer we'll be able to give out seedlings to kids. The idea behind giving out those little seedlings to kids is so that they know where their food is coming from, and hopefully can grow their own and maybe spark some interest in agriculture. So I just would like to publicly thank Adele for doing that, and this is not the first time Adele has done this. She is very generous with her time. So that's about it. That's my fun news.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Jean before we let her go? Any questions, comments, concerns?
No, but thank you.
All right, great.
Thanks,
Thank
Jean.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, review and approval of minutes of April 19, 2022.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 19th, 2022.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, all those in favor? And Larry's an abstain. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, under new business, town accountant interviews.
Could I give a brief introduction, Mike?
Sure can.
Great, thank you. So, as the board knows, our prior town accountant left in early February for another opportunity. We met previously on this, and the board delegated the first phase of interviews to me and to other staff, not as a steering committee, not to narrow down the number of finalists, but just to conduct the first round of interview with qualified applicants. In your packet, we included the job advertisement as well as the job description, and then the cover letter and resume for the two people that we interviewed internally, and both of whom you'll be interviewing publicly tonight. And as you'll see, both of the applicants have a lot of good experience and have very good qualifications. So we're pleased that we have two good candidates here before you tonight. So maybe with that, if that's okay with you, Mike, I'll introduce Mr. Andrew Vani, who was first up. And I've already told him that that's going to be the hot seat for him, and that you'll have a number of questions to go.
Hi.
And I don't know about timing-wise, Mike, if you wanted to think about maybe, I don't know, a half hour per candidate, whatever time frame you think, just because it might be helpful for the applicant as well as you guys to keep an eye on the clock.
I know as a board, we've kind of prepared some questions and gone through some things. And I think first thing we'd like to hear is kind of just an introduction from Mr. Vani himself, speaking specifically about your job experience and your interest in this position.
Sure. You have my resume. Let me walk backwards to the resume to the present. My computer skills are Munis, Infinite Vision, Microsoft Office, and C++. I'm a certified government accountant, a Massachusetts accredited assessor, and I have a bachelor's in accounting, a master's in taxation, and almost completed a master's in information systems. I worked for Raytheon for approximately 12 years and was promoted a few times there. And then I took a position in the first municipality. It was Bolton. I was the principal assessor. I was responsible for valuing the town, for personal property and real estate. I went to revals, and I also, that's where I first started getting involved with the recap. I did the Schedule 13, LA 13, the LA 4, and the LA 5. And the accountant did other parts and things of that nature. I also moved from a command prompt system to a Windows-based system. I then took a job in Middleton, where I was the town accountant, CFO. Very similar to this position, where I was responsible for the recap, free cash calculation, and financial statements, the vendor warrant, the payroll warrant, just the whole financial situation. I moved on to payroll, where I was the finance director there, and similar type job, but I was responsible for treasury and accounting, purchasing, assessing, basically all those functions. It was a much larger community. It's 173 million in the budget. At that time, it's probably much larger now. And I'm responsible for similar type documents, so the free cash, the recap, the Schedule A, the budget. And then I also have my own consulting business where I prepare financial statement and do taxes for individuals and small corporations. But my last job was with the town called Newbury, Boston. I was there approximately 3 years, and I was responsible for similar type documents, the Schedule A, the recap, budgeting, and free cash calculation. I also did what they call a CAFRA. It's pretty extensive financial report. What your auditors give you is probably around 60, 70 pages. The CAFRA is probably 100 on top of that. It's just taking the financial data and slicing and dicing it more. When I first got there, I noticed that the reserves were quite low, and I know that Standard & Poor's likes the reserves to be high. So what I did in my 3 years I was there, I worked with the town manager, and what we did was we had $500,000 to the overlay and $500,000 to the stabilization. And then we also recognized the OPEB liability. No one was recognizing that. Most communities that I've worked in the past, they really didn't recognize the OPEB liability. Here you're doing a great job. You recognize that you have a fund already set up and you're adding to it. But those were, I'm highlighting that as accomplishments because I brought them up over the 10% reserve level, which is you can be a double A in one town and a double A in another town, but the narrative they write with it will have an effect on the interest rate you get when you go to borrow. So that's why I focus on reserves and building a strong balance sheet and strong financial condition for any community or any company for that matter. And that's me in a capsule.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. So with that, I'll open it up to members of the board. If you guys would like to start asking questions, I think maybe we'll start with Selectman Childs.
Oh, sure. So why are you interested in this position, and how does it fit into your overall career goals?
I'm interested in the position because I think I read the job description, and what I've done in the past is very similar roles, so it's a good fit. And I think I could carry forward and build you a stronger balance sheet within the job. But we, move along with it, depends how we felt about it. But I think that would be my intent.
Okay.
And I think it would be a good fit.
Okay. Selectwoman Shorter?
Now, you are from Medford, yes?
Yes.
So are you available for evening meetings?
Yes.
That wouldn't pause?
Yeah, I always, in every position that I had in municipal government, even private sector, we work late in private sector, but night meetings is always part and parcel with the job, pretty much. You have to go to finance committee meetings and full of stuff.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever been to a planning board meeting, but those two I've gone to
Thank you.
on several occasions. Finance committee just about all of them.
Okay. Selectman Needham?
Can you describe your knowledge of and experience with the Department of Revenue? And what's your experience preparing or submitting reports for the DOR?
I've seen the days when the DOR rep used to come out and take all your balance sheets and review it and come up with a number. And at the end, we would see the match. It was the DOR rep, I think he's retired now. But now it's all done electronically. You do a combined balance sheet, you submit it, and all the paperwork that has to be submitted to go along with it. You basically take a undesignated fund balance from the general fund, subtract your receivables, add back your deferred, and subtract some deficits, which you do have the deficits. I was kind of surprised when I was going through the financial statements that you have a deficit of over $125,000 in the sewer fund. That should be corrected.
Thank you.
Selectwoman Nyman?
Just to follow up on that, when was your last balance submission and with what community?
Probably in October of 2020.
And what community was that?
Millbury.
Millburn. Great, thank you.
Okay. What's your knowledge and understanding of enterprise fund budgets and the state's uniform procurement law, including Mass General Law, Chapter 30B?
Chapter 30B is best business practices from 0 to 10,000. 10,000 to 50,000 is 3 quotes. Anything over 50,000 would require an RFP or an invitation for bid.
Okay.
What was the first part of that question?
Your understanding of enterprise funds?
Enterprise funds, yeah, water and sewer, I saw that you have and you funded it, hoping it passed on Monday for $3 million each. Yeah, I'm familiar with enterprise funds. In Millbury, you had both for water and sewer, and then also in Haverhill, and pretty much in Newton as well.
Okay.
I didn't get involved with it in Bolton, because I was the principal assessor. I was more concentrating on the valuation of the town and not the account.
Absolutely. Selectwoman Childs?
The town accountant, you're oftentimes pulled in several different directions. So,
Yeah,
yeah. all while having deadlines for year-end reports, payroll, warrants, et cetera. What techniques do you use in order to prioritize the day, and how do you interact under pressure like that?
I make sure I make the deadline. I handle it by urgency, what needs to be done first.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm working on free cash, but I still have some time there, then I'll work on the more urgent item. If something is more urgent, our department head needs something or assistance. If I need to stay late to finish what I'm working on to make the deadline, I will work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Always work the deadlines. Free cash is usually done in October, mid-October.
Okay.
Usually you get your, so that's in October, and the recap is done like mid-November, and getting ready for bills for January 1st.
Okay, and what's your experience been in interacting with your team under pressure?
I delegate, and
Mhm.
if they don't perform, then I chip in, I'll alone.
Okay.
Okay. Donna?
What's your experience dealing with the town administrator, department heads, school administration, and elected or appointed boards or committees?
Town administrator, probably on a daily basis. School, probably similar, school business manager. I would say daily, but at least once a week. And elected officials, well, in this town's a little different, because you're an elected treasurer and elected collector. But usually the elected officials a little less often, usually go through the town administrator. And if they want me at a meeting, then I'll present myself.
Thank you.
Tiffany?
What would you consider your greatest work accomplishment?
Accomplishments I provided a list, I don't know if you have it. But one of the good ones that I like to go back to is the one where I set demand fees out earlier. If you get demand fees out earlier, what you do is two things. You increase revenue by getting demand fee, because there's less people who paid. I did that in payroll, fees a month earlier, and so I increased revenue by about $30,000, and also brought the collection rate to 99%. I think here you're at 97%. If you were to go up just 1%, in this town, you'd be looking at close to $500,000 more for free cash. Your revenue will increase by June 30th.
Karen?
What's your experience with budgets?
I work with the town manager, and we sort through the budget process and who's gonna get what, but the first thing would be is to figure out the revenue sources. There are basically three main revenue sources that the town has. And the first is the tax levy that you figure out. The second would be the state aid. I saw the state aid is going up about $2 million. And the third would be, it was on page 3 of the recap, local receipts, which has your motor vehicle excise in line 1. But there's a whole bunch of receipts that come up. And I noticed in this town that we prepared it very conservatively, about $1.5 million less than actual, so that will give you a cushion as to that money going towards free cash, which is excellent. It still remains a close budget.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, what's your budget philosophy? Do you work with department heads or just the town administrator directly when you create your budget?
I work with department heads. I send out what they call year-to-date budget reports. I send them out monthly, and then for the budget, I send them out for the entire year, showing what they spent last each department head and go through item by item.
Great, thank you.
Any experience with MSBA reimbursement filings or other state contracts?
Yeah, I was involved in several capital projects. Two towns, building Middleton, built a school. I know you're building an $86 million school. Haverhill was building a school. Usually you have an OPM in the middle, making all the payments. The payments are then submitted to, payments to the vendors that are building a school. Because you have to segregate it from the regular warrant. And then you take those and either the school minister manager or myself submit it to the state for reimbursement. There was a time years ago that they used to wait till the school was completed, but then it was a job and a half because you had to dig through and find all of your invoices and then submit them. But I also figured out a system for that too. What I did was, back in those days, I ran a separate warrant, anything to do with building construction. So then it was all separately in a different file, in a different file cabinet. So all I had to do was take the whole file cabinet and give it to them. But now I do it as you go along, so that's even better. And you get money while you're building. The cash flow is not as tight.
Ms. Charles?
Yes, can you give us a specific example of a time you had to deal with a difficult staff issue and how you handled it?
Yeah, I had one comes to mind. She was the wife of a police officer, and she came to work with the mindset that it was a social hour, and it was a small town in Middleton, and she didn't do much work, and she was basically was talking a lot, and basically, not only was she not working, but the person she was talking to was not working. So I spoke with her once and waited some time and didn't work. Spoke to her again, waited some time, it didn't work. And the third time, I took her into my office and I wrote her up and put it into her personnel file, and that time it worked. And so you get the point.
Ms. Shortall?
You've been in supervisory roles. How many employees have you been responsible for?
In Bolton, I had one. In Middleton, I had three direct reports, and then probably 3 or 4 on the side. In Haverhill, I think it was 14. I had 5 direct reports, and 9 in the dark. And then I recently had 3 direct reports on about 5 in the dark.
Thank you.
So I had plenty of management experience.
May I ask, how would you handle, or what would your approach be to the first 90 days of your employment with Rockland?
My approach would be to see what's in place now, and then to move forward. I know it would be closing the year, that's not too far in the future, June 30th. So that would be first be observed and work with Doug. I wouldn't change anything for the first, at least for the first year or two. Unless I saw something that was glaringly incorrect. Any good manager wouldn't change anything that's working.
Thank you.
Ms. Nyman?
Do you feel your consulting business would conflict with your job here in Rockland?
No, I've had it since 1988, and I do it on nights and weekends.
Thank you.
So one of the priorities that this board has always had is what we consider to be customer service with the residents. What is your experience in dealing with residents, and what's your philosophy behind customer service in general?
We work for the taxpayers, so I think you have to
Ms. Childs?
So I come to this board from being on the finance committee, and I'm wondering what your experience is working with finance committees, and how do you work together to reach a common goal with them?
The finance committee, basically take, reports and provide them with reports and, work with them and explain whatever they may not understand or may understand and discuss it. Because they're the ones also that are saying if they don't like something we're spending money on, then they could put, a thumbs down on it. So it's very important to communicate with the finance committee and to get along.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Donna?
No, I don't have anything else.
You good? Okay. Tiffany?
Could you describe in your words why you'd feel you are the best person for this position?
Well, I have a list of accomplishments that I've completed, and I have a very strong background, strong education, and experience. I think I would be a very good fit for the job that
Thank you.
And Kara?
How soon would you be available to start if you were the successful candidate?
Probably 2 weeks.
Great, thanks.
If we were to call any of your previous employers about you, what would they say?
I think you already called them, and they were relatively good references. I'm a quick learner, team player. I would say positive.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like for us to know about you that will aid us in making our decision?
I think, well, there's something I have questions for you.
We'll get to that next. That's my next question.
I think you're pretty thorough between the last interview and this interview. I don't know what else. I think you've seen pretty much everything.
Okay. And now we'll go to your question. Do you have any questions for
Yeah,
us?
the question I had was, I saw that you put $175,000 on Monday's town meeting warrant. Did that pass?
We did 175,000 towards what?
Toward the open, I'm sorry.
Yes, everything at town meeting passed.
And the 665 for the stabilization?
Yes,
We talked
that-
about that earlier.
It did.
I thought there were, that too much was in free cash and none of it was allocated to the stabilization, which is looked upon, again, S&P as a stronger reserve than free cash.
Yeah,
Free-
our goal-
Free cash fluctuates, stabilization is a little harder.
Yeah, our goal was ultimately to get to about 5% of the operating budget for stabilization. But obviously over the last few years with COVID and having to draw from that, and we had a purchase of 36 acres of land that the finance committee was good enough to front that money for us until we could give it back at town meeting. So obviously the goal is to add more to stabilization. It was just a priority for us this year to replace the money that we had borrowed plus add some more to it. And that's only an account that we've had for probably the last 10 years or so. And I think at one point we got it up close to about just over $2 million. But we're working it back up there and trying to get to that 5%
Well,
goal.
maybe that gets you close
Very close.
right now.
Very close.
2 million.
Yep.
I think it's, 1,349,000.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for us?
I think that we covered pretty much everything.
Okay. And Andrew, we thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll let you know.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank
Good to
you
meet
so
you.
much.
I'm very
Thanks for your
much
interest.
in the position, and I hope you consider me.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I assume Jen is getting the next candidate?
Yeah,
or
so we'll give Andrew a minute to
Yep.
come out.
Collect the stuff, absolutely.
Sorry about the table, Andrew. It's
No
like,
problem.
we gotta get better wheels on that. Get a lot better. If you wanna go down there,
Thank you. Have a
Steve.
good night.
You as well. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for coming in, Stacy. Can see you out down there. See you later.
See ya.
So next up will be Scott Curtis, who will be in momentarily.
Okay. Scott, thank you for coming in. Appreciate your interest in the position. So we just went through our first interview, and we just kind of started off with just asking you to take an opportunity to share with us some of your background, your professional work history, your education, and anything else, training that you might have had for this job.
Sure. Okay. I've graduated from Bridgewater State College. I've got 21 years experience in accounting and finance, of which 8 is in a municipal setting. I've been in both the accounting office as well as the treasurer collector's office, and I've had training with both the Mass Municipal Accounting Association up at Amherst as well as the Treasurer Collectors Association.
Okay. So we as a board, we prepared a number of questions, and we're just going to go through it. Each person will take a second and ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
Ms. Childs?
Yeah, why are you interested in this position, and how does it fit in with your overall career goals, and why do you feel you're the best choice?
Well, I'd like to get back into municipal finance, and at the town level. I was working for the town of Stoughton, and I was presented with an opportunity to work for a trade show company. Gentleman that I worked for, I didn't apply for it, they approached me, and COVID hit, and that industry basically almost went away. So I'd like to, get back to municipal finance. This is a great opportunity. It's closer to home. I've got 3 kids, and, I participate a lot as far as coaching their athletics after school and that sort of stuff. So, and I think I've got, with all my experience, as well as I have munis experience, many years of that, which is the program that's used here. So I'm confident that my overall experience in both accounting and as a treasurer collector kind of gives me a broader view of how things function within the office.
Okay.
Thank you. Selectwoman Shorto?
Having been in a supervisory role, how many employees have you had working under you?
At most, it was roughly 5 or 6 under me. Annual reviews. As far as my management, the way I manage is I like to have, everybody says it's cliche, is the open door policy, but I definitely have that policy, as well as I like to, check in with people that don't come to see me, to see what's going on with them, because I like to make sure that they have an equal balance of time, both work and home. If someone has something going on at home, they might bring it into the office, and I'd like to see what's going on and how people are gonna be functioning throughout their day.
Thank you.
Can you describe your knowledge of and your experience with the Department of Revenue? And what's your experience preparing or submitting reports for the DOR?
Yep, I've worked a lot with the Division of Local Services, as well as the rep for the town of Rocklin, with Martin, who's the rep for the town of Rocklin. In my experience, I've worked on preparing all the reports as the assistant town accountant, both the Schedule A, the tax recap, all those forms. I would prepare them, and then the town accountant would go and review and submit them, because that was under his authority to submit them. But I've done all those things with the Division of Local Services.
Thank you.
Selectman Nyman?
What experience do you have working with a municipal budget?
I worked in the town of Stoughton. I worked both. When I was in Hanover, the treasurer collector, I created my department budget. But when I was in the town of Stoughton, we kind of created like a budget team. We worked with all the different departments to come up with their budgets to best suit the town with the spending. So I have my hands in all different functions of the budget.
Great. So do you work with department heads as well to see their needs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's needs versus wants is kind of when it comes to the budget. Because the needs first and the wants, maybe they're long term, short term. But I like to see what they have planned short term and long term to see if future budgets, if we can start building in some things that maybe a department may need down the line.
Great. Thank you.
What's your knowledge and understanding of enterprise funds and the state's uniform procurement laws, including Mass General Law, Chapter 30B?
Yep, I've got a lot of experience with 30B as far as procurement and setting out bids and RFPs, that sort of thing. And in Stoughton, we had both the water and sewer funds. So I'm familiar with how they operate.
Ms. Childs?
Yeah, so the town accountant's often pulled in several different directions at one time.
Absolutely.
You know, for end of the year reports, warrants, weekly payroll. What techniques do you use in order to prioritize the day-to-day, and how do you interact with others under pressure and spin plates in general?
Sure, I think
Yeah.
as far as my interaction with other people, usually I'll stay calm, you know, even if I'm stressed to the highest level. You know, if I come off calm, other people will be calm as far as certain situations go. I keep a notebook, I keep my calendar up to date with things that are coming, things that are pending, you know. Obviously payroll, warrants, that sort of stuff, that's priority, getting that stuff signed and processed in a timely manner. But, you know, prioritize the things that need to get done, keep them managed, you know, either in a notebook or on a calendar.
Okay.
Ms. Shortall?
What is your experience dealing with town administrator, department heads, school administration, elected or appointed officials?
My experience in interacting with them is it's always, you know, it's been a positive one. You know, we need to work together. You know, I'm in one role, everybody is trying to run their department, and it doesn't make sense to have somebody out on an island trying to run their department. If I can help them, you know, if they've got questions, they can come to me, and the same thing, you know, with schools and, you know, elected officials. We're kind of, you know, not to go use sports metaphors, but we're all on the same team. We're trying to push forward and go together as one to make things function within town.
What would you consider your greatest work accomplishment?
The greatest work accomplishment was when I was working for the town of Hanover, newly appointed a role of treasurer collector. We had to come up kind of really fast with a cash receipts policy. There wasn't one really in town that was lagging. So, you know, right off the bat, I kind of jumped into that because we knew where we had to be, where we wanted to be, and it was just kind of putting this together to implement it. You know, taking opinions of people that were involved in the process to see what, you know, their input of how it should go, but knowing where we wanted to be was one of the biggest accomplishments, and they're actually still using the same policy that I created while I was there.
Ms. Manning?
Do you have any experience with the tax rate recap?
Yep, I've submitted the accounting information for the tax rate recap, you know, after, you know, everything's settled, and then the town accountant would go in and submit the final form with the assessor and all of that, yeah.
Thank you.
What experience do you have with MSBA reimbursement filings and state contracts?
Yep. So when I was in Hanover, they were finishing up the new high school, and I was part of submitting the MSBA reimbursement forms there. In Stoughton, the OPM did a lot of the stuff, but I was involved with, you know, getting the information to them in order to submit the reimbursements for the town projects that were going on there. They were also building the high schools.
Ms. Childs?
Yeah, can you give me a specific example of a time you had to deal with a difficult staff issue and how you handled it?
Sure. We had an issue where we kind of had a new employee that came in and kind of thought that they knew it all off the bat. And we had an employee that had been there for 15 years who kind of put her foot down to say that's not the way. So I brought them in, we discussed it, we hashed it out, you know, they both gave their sides, and we resolved it kind of in a mutual way that so they could, you know, working in town hall, there's small offices, you need to get along with the people who are in there with you. So I had, you know, we brought them in my office, we hashed it out, and cool heads prevailed.
Okay.
Ms. Shortall?
Are you available for evening meetings?
Absolutely, my schedule, you know, a good thing about, you know, coaching my kids' sports is I have the ability to change practice time and that sort of stuff, so I would make myself available for evening meetings, absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you please share with us how you would approach your first 90 days of employment in Rockland?
I think the first 90 days would just be important to kind of come in and get to know the people, you know who does what and what kind of maybe issues they might have, you know, not that we can fix them in the first 90 days, but kind of know what's out there as far as, you know, what's good, what's bad. You know, a lot of people have the the institutional knowledge, kind of lean on them to see, I'd be new coming in, and maybe someone's been here 10, 12 years that would know, I might have an idea, and they would say, well, it doesn't work here, or maybe this is why it doesn't work here. So I think in the first 90 days, it's just good to know the people, what's happening in town.
Thank you.
Ms. Nyman?
What's your experience with certifying free cash?
I've submitted it, pulled the information out of Munis to submit on the Division of Local Services page, and then, like I said, I would prepare it, and the town accountant would generally review it and submit it, or report on it together, but I have submitted that.
Thank you.
What's your philosophy on customer service, and who do you believe the customer to be?
Who do I believe the customer would be? Residents as well as other departments within town. And I'm a strong believer in, when my first job out of college, I spent a year in customer service at the trade show level. We had someone come in who did a training with us, and they couldn't believe how difficult the industry is. So, I've put a lot into customer service. I've working in the treasurer collector's office. A lot of people come in on tax day, they heated, or either get a demand or a warrant. They come in, so it's just a matter of talking to them, listening to them, and hearing what they have to say. But like I said, the customers would be all the departments as well as any residents or anything like that.
Okay. Ms. Childs?
Yeah, can you describe, I looked on your resume and it seems like your jobs change every 2 to 3 years. Can you explain
Well,
the
yeah.
trajectory of that?
Most recently, I was working in Stoughton, and that's kind of where I wanted to be.
Mhm.
However, like I said, the gentleman from T3 approached me about an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. It was incredible
Yeah.
for me and my family. And then COVID hit, and that industry kind of went away. So here I am. I took a job because being the controller, I kind of could read the writing on the wall. I could see what was happening. So now I'm just trying to get back to something that's closer to home, and preferably back in a municipal setting, which I really enjoy working.
Okay.
If we recall your previous employers, what would they say about you?
For the most part, I think they would say that I'm easy to get along with, hardworking, dedicated. Working at, going back to T3 as a controller, I spent the last year working in the warehouse assembling sneeze guards for COVID, because that's what we needed to get done to try to keep the business rolling. We were short employees because we had to lay people off, so I'm definitely like a team player. I do whatever has to get done to roll forward.
If you were offered this position, when would you be available to start?
More than likely, it would just be a 2-week window.
All right, and in closing, is there anything else that you would like us to know about you that will help us aid us in making our decision?
No, I think just in closing, I just think I'm a dedicated employee. I'm all in once I'm in. I work and do whatever has to be done to move forward. Easy to get along with, and I'm just dedicated to get the job done.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. We appreciate your time and your interest in the town, and we'll let you know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay, now that both candidates have left, I'll open it up to discussion amongst the board. If anybody has any thoughts or opinions, concerns that they'd like to express, now would be the time.
They both seem pretty qualified.
Okay, Doug, did you have something?
Yeah, and I don't want to cut folks off, but I thought I could give a little bit more context too. I should highlight that at the first interview that we had, we included our consultant accountant who's filling in temporarily. So he provided a lot of very technical questions as well, because obviously that none of us here are accountants. So I just wanted, you to understand, and the public as well, that, our consultant accountant and literally gave, scenarios and examples. How would you handle, this journal entry? What's the debit and the credit on this account? So rest assured, both candidates were able to successfully answer those questions. I just thought, if it's okay, I could give you maybe a little bit of my feedback and a little bit of the feedback from Jen and Stacy. But my feedback also is based on some of the input that I heard tonight from both candidates. I think the thing that struck out to me, they're both good. I guess I should just start off, and I think as Lori just said, they're obviously both qualified. That's clear, and that's why, we interviewed them and we forwarded them to you. So we're gonna have to like find the things on the margins that are really gonna distinguish one for the other, because we can only hire one person. Based on tonight, some of the things that stuck out to me in comparing them, I took a lot of detailed notes. The second person, Mr. Curtis, some of the things that he spoke about, just on a personal level, management style, open door policy, checking in with staff, on a personal level, in dealing with stressful situations, staying calm, keeping notes, documenting with a calendar, prioritizing. Like, these are all things that stuck out to me as, good answers. And additionally, in response to a question about working with other boards and committees, he talked a lot about teamwork. And that's really like a huge thing anywhere, but it's obviously important for us here, because these are all attributes that we really need, because the accounting department is this kind of financial hub for the whole organization that we're in. And I think that, fit is going to be a really important thing for this position. And obviously, I don't know these people personally. I've just known them from 2 interviews. But I do think Mr. Curtis would be a good fit in the organization. And then I should also just highlight that, we have done some reference checks, both ourselves at the staff level as well as a professional external company. And again, I'm just trying to lean on where I think, in my personal mind, I would recommend. All of Mr. Curtis's references and recommendations were stellar, just stellar. So those are my thoughts. And I imagine that, and Jen's nodding, so I think she agrees. And I think Stacy stepped out. But I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Doug. Anybody else? Any comments, thoughts about the candidates?
Well, I agree, we probably need a team player, considering our recent past with, with the town accountant and, the dramatic things that happened a few years ago. So a team player and somebody that's easy to get along with would certainly move things forward, I believe. So.
Anybody else?
In addition to the reference checks that Doug talked about, I also kind of did my own homework and talked to some people that worked with some of the candidates here tonight. And Scott really was one of the best candidates, I think, that people talked about. He had some really high recommendations coming back. So I would feel confident with hiring Scott Curtis to be our next town accountant.
Okay. Tiffany, you got something to say?
Yeah, I would second that.
Is that a motion? Or-
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I was gonna say.
I would second that in terms of, there's no question about Mr. Curtis's knowledge base, but at the same time, I appreciated his down-to-earth management style, and where from the get-go, and one of the first things that he was highlighting was the importance of team player in a small setting. That's very important. So.
Okay.
I was also impressed with his approach for the first 90 days, that he would get to know everyone, because I think that's crucial, because you're going to be working so closely with people that you really need to get to know personalities, jobs, because everything can be a little different from town to town. So I was very impressed with that would be his approach.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in agreement. I thought both candidates were very well qualified. They both seem to have the technical knowledge of the job of town accountant. And I think, it's one of the things that it wasn't necessarily said, but one of the things that I think I recognized in Mr. Curtis was, in his mind, I felt as though the importance of professional courtesy and understanding that every department is trying to work together to achieve the same goals, and that, as the accountant, you can be a liaison in helping to accomplish those goals, and communication back and forth between the town administrator's office. And, he made a comment where he said that he likes to visit those that he doesn't hear from often. And I think that stood out because it tells me that he's being proactive about the relationships and checking in with the department. So, I guess I have a motion from Kara and a second from Tiffany to enter into contract negotiations with Mr. Curtis.
So I would say not for contract negotiations,
Not yet.
because
Okay.
my recommendation for whoever you choose would be to keep that position off contract.
Okay, that's right, correct,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Into offering the position to Mr. Curtis. I misspoke, that was my own rule and I misspoke, great. My own initiative. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Childs?
Aye.
Ms. Shorto?
Aye.
Ms. Needham?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Nyman?
Yes.
And myself, unanimous.
Thank you very much. What I would request, since this position is no longer on contract, my request would be, if the board is comfortable with that, would be to delegate to me the authority just to finalize the terms of employment, which for all non-contract, non-union positions, we do via a letter. But I would stick strictly within the guidelines of the job posting that you previously approved. So within the salary range that was posted, and the only other item really would just be vacation, which would be what's typically offered to a department head level person with significant prior experience. So assuming I just stayed within those parameters, I would ask that you delegate with me rather than having to wait another 2 weeks to do that. If for some reason, for whatever reason, I would want to do something that was outside of those normal parameters, then I would certainly bring it back to you for a public discussion. So if that's okay, that's how I'd like to proceed.
I don't have an issue with it. Anybody else have any concerns with that?
Nope.
With that approach? Okay. So I don't think we need a vote, but you got consensus,
All
so.
right, great,
that's
thank
fine.
you.
Okay.
I also want to, at this time, Mr. Chairman, thank Andrew Vani for coming in and interviewing with us tonight. He was definitely a qualified candidate. I just think at this time Scott is a better fit
Of
for the
course.
town of Rockland.
Perfect, well said. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is the fire station building project. Fire Chief Scott Duffy. How are you, Scott?
Hello, board, how are you?
Doing well.
Thank you for having me up here tonight. I just wanted, with the new board and a lot of changes over the last couple of years as we've moved through this project, just bring this board, up to date a little bit, kind of get your thoughts on this project. It's a big project that's going to be approaching the town. I think all of you have been through the fire station, have seen the cramped facilities. It's an older facility. It's time we need some change, upgrade for it. It has served the town very well. It's in an awesome spot. I wish we had a little bit more land because I'd love to stay where we were, be able to renovate what we have. But I think we have to look at a new building. The Fire Station Building Committee has done great work at looking at sites. We had an architect come in, do some programming for us. And
Do you
right
need
on,
to get-
right
you
on
need to
cue,
get
I
that?
asked them to do that, right on cue. So,
Wow. So they're the ones watching the meeting.
they are. So, we looked at sites, we had architects come in, do some programming for us, what we would need for a size of a building for a department for the town of Rockland. Looking at those sites, we felt that there was a best site, and that was the Lincoln School. And I know we've brought this to the board before. Soon after COVID, we had an expert consultant come in on fire departments, Manitou, Dr. Charles Jennings from New York. He came in, he looked at all the overall department operations, did some response time studies for us, looked at where we were the busiest, and then he also looked at, would we be better going with a 2-station model or a 1-station model, and how would we do that? Based upon his findings, we'd be best off with a 1-station model at this time with the current personnel level that we have. So I would just like to keep the board, informed of that. We did take a vote at the last Fire Station Building Committee meeting to stay with the 1-station model with the Lincoln School as our primary site. I would just like the board's blessing, I guess I would say, is to continue to move forward with that program. And to start, the next process would be to start meeting with the abutters of that property. Our next big plan is to have a meeting at the fire station for the public and for the abutters to come up, see what we're dealing with, why the current fire station, we've outgrown it, and, you know, why we would be good neighbors for the Howard Street, Church Street, Franklin Ave area. So, yeah, that's why we're here, just kind of an update, also, you know, new board members, and to kind of just, I guess, ask for your blessing, permission to move forward with that idea, that and push. Goal would be to hopefully, you know, and there's a lot of work still, but hopefully get some type of financing request maybe at the next town meeting.
It's okay, Mike, I'd like to maybe just add a little bit to what the chief said. Obviously, I agree with everything he said. A little bit more context. When I first came on board, the Dollar Tree was a Rite Aid. And I know that was a site that the chief was, you know, really closely looking at, because that was a potentially, you know, good location. That the Rite Aid site, now the Dollar Tree parcel, by itself wasn't quite big enough, but that grass field behind it that's owned by the church, if they used maybe half of that, you know, that potentially could have been optimal. Well, then a Dollar Tree went in. We reached out to the owners of the property multiple times in writing, even through our attorney, you know, seeing if they'd be interested in selling that, and no interest at all. So they're not interested in selling that property, so that's just not an option. So I think one of the main things I wanted just to highlight is that the town doesn't own any other suitably sized land in a suitable location other than the Lincoln School. I know that if we could wave the magic wand and do what the chief really wanted, we'd have at least 2 stations right now. It would be one station somewhere in this part of town, maybe a little closer, you know, toward Market Street, and then another one in the sort of the farther north. And the chief has even identified a small parcel of town-owned land that could site there. The issues with that is we would have to then build a new building, plus, you know, renovate the current building. But most importantly, we'd have to staff the new building, and that's not a one-time capital expense, that's a permanent recurring cost. And even with some of those federal SAFER grants, where you get, you know, 100% reimbursement for a couple of years, within 5 years it dwindles down to nothing and it's fully on the town's dime. So I get where the chief's coming from now. For now, it makes sense to me to focus on, without having to worry about an override to hire new staff, to focus on an appropriate building that will be safe for the employees and make them more effective. When we were talking recently, and the chief talked about it a couple times, you know, wanted to make sure you're comfortable before they take it to the next step. We didn't want to go out and start talking to abutters and having open houses and things like that to get ahead of the board and having you guys say, whoa, wait a minute, we hadn't talked about this or agreed to this. So in my way of thinking about it, I would recommend, if you're comfortable with it, to, you know, allow the chief and the building committee to keep moving forward, have those important discussions with the abutters. And then I think the building committee and I need to talk about, if we're going to really continue to progress this, what's the best path forward? Because there's really 3 different ways you can approach a fire station building project. And unfortunately, it's not like schools, where schools get, you know, 50% reimbursement from the state through the MSBA, or through libraries with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. There's no state agency like that funds public safety facilities, unfortunately. So we will obviously look for grants, but when you look at what every town is forced to do, they have to do a debt exclusion to build these types of facilities. So the 3 ways you can really go about it is the chief and the building committee previously, you know, contracted with an architect and a cost estimator, so they have a decent rough cost estimate. It's a little bit old now, but we could apply some inflation, you know, indicators to that. And obviously, the way inflation's gone recently, there'll be some high inflation factors. But you could rely on that number if you got to a point where you're ready to progress, and put it on the ballot, because this would have to go to a debt exclusion, requires the ballot, and a town meeting vote, and you could rely on that number and, you know, hope that it comes in accurately. Another option, a second option, is to invest some town funding into further design. So you pay the architects to progress the design a little bit further, and you hire another cost estimator to do a more refined cost estimate based on the further design. So that just gives you a little bit better cost estimate then you could go to town meeting with that. Then the third option, which some towns do, is you invest even more money into final design, 100% design, full construction documents, and you actually go out to bid and you bid the project, and then you get the low bid in hand, and that's the number you ask voters. You have to align it all properly. You got to coordinate it. So when you go to the ballot and town meeting, you know what the actual price is. So the downside to that is if it fails, you've wasted, $1 million or whatever in doing all that design and construction documents to get to that point. But the benefit of it is you get a good hard number, and, we were very fortunate the way the school building project came in under budget, everybody, but there's always the possibility if it's based on a very rough preliminary cost estimate that it might not be perfectly accurate. So I just wanted to kind of get you thinking about, what the next steps would be, and I would anticipate as we go through meeting with the butters and kind of fine-tuning our own thoughts, we would have a recommendation for you saying we recommend option whatever, 1, 2, or 3 on those next steps. And I guess the last thing I would say is, every town faces a similar dilemma where we have a lot of competing needs. We have water, we have sewer, we have roads, we have a community center, we need a fire station. And what happens in many communities, including the last community I worked in, there was a feeling of, well, we don't want to just vote on one thing in isolation, because what about all the other things, and how's this going to fit into the big picture? So then things get delayed, and we pull all those other needs in together, and then you add them all up, and then oftentimes the community says, whoa, we can't afford all this. This is huge. This is way too much. And so my own personal opinion is it's good to know what the big picture is, and we should continue to talk about all the needs that we have. But I also think as we're ready for individual projects, we should knock them off one by one and make progress and not get paralyzed by the magnitude of all the issues we have to face. I think we should make progress. So that's my own thoughts. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Doug. Any comments from members of the board? Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, just, I when I lived in Maryland, I had a fire station right behind my house, so I wasn't a butter. And just to let the public know, after a while, I didn't even hear the signals. You just get used to it. But I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about a noise ordinance where you wouldn't put on the alarms until
So
you're
right
out.
now, we wouldn't be, most likely we wouldn't be moving the horn with the fire station.
Right, yeah.
Now that we've gone to a regional dispatch, we really don't have much of a mechanism to be able to set that off from regional dispatch. So
Right.
every now and then, the guys will do it on the way out, but that is something that, if it's going to help us and help that neighborhood and, help us fit within it, obviously, we'd be. As far as, using the sirens on the engines, I previously worked in a community where between this street and this street, we were to keep the sirens at a minimum. And again, that was at the butter's request.
Yeah.
That is obviously something we can do. The sirens and the horns are, for safety and to allow us to get to a call, expeditiously. But, moving through a neighborhood, we're not gonna be racing through, Howard Street, Church Street,
Yeah.
those neighborhoods anyways, at a fast rate, so.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
wanted, the public to understand
No, we
the
wanna be good
parameters of it.
neighbors, yeah, no, we absolutely wanna be good neighbors for wherever we end up, or if, we stay where we are and somehow make it work, but,
Yeah,
no, we wanna be good neighbors, and I think we are good neighbors.
yeah.
I really do.
And I had another thing. Can you explain to people, because they might not know about the carcinogens in the current firehouse?
Sure,
That have leaked
sure.
into the wall.
So currently, the fire station, as you look at the building, the right-hand side of it was constructed in 1938 off of federal grant funds. The left-hand side of it was built in 1978, and that was the last major work that was done to that building. And I believe that was also off of grant funds. So it's been quite some time since the town's paid some money for a station. However, when we go to a fire, and, we enter into a smoke-filled building, we get covered in soot, debris from the building itself, asbestos. And a lot of that's chemicals now. You know, furniture is made out of it. It's essentially solid gasoline, the styrofoam, the foams that are in it. You know, all that gives off a toxic chemical that we're walking around in our turnout coats and our fire gear. When we get back to the fire station, we wash it. We do our best to wash. However, it's still off gases. Those chemicals are still trapped in the fibers. They still come out. We just hang up our stuff in a locker that's along the sides of the station, and, you know, we go about our day. But our day is around those, you know, where it's an open concept station. You know, we're eating lunch, hanging out, waiting for the next call, repairing trucks, training, all amongst that gear. The diesel from the trucks. We have diesel exhaust systems. They're the yellow hoses when you see in the station. That captures the diesel, sends it out. However, when we do back in and out, there is still some diesel trapped. So diesel soot and car exhaust is you know, a known carcinogen and cause cancers. So, you know, the firefighters are amongst that. And it's big right now is to keep, you know, what's the best ways to reduce cancer in the fire service. And as we're taking the best steps as we can to, you know, to make sure our gear is washed, you know, to make sure, you know, we wash our hands when we get, you know, just certain things. But one of the big things is that in new station design, they're designing stations to have substantially separate areas. Turnout gear is kept in one area with a substantially separate ventilation system. The trucks are, you know, your living spaces, your break rooms, your office areas are substantially separate and ventilated different in completely separate zones from the other apparatus floor and stuff. So it would be a much healthier environment for the town, for the personnel.
And one more thing, do you currently have to customize the size of your fire trucks to fit in the station?
We do, so
Okay, so how would that cost offset?
So, you know, most fire trucks are custom order anyway.
Yeah.
But, for example, on the one that we will be ordering shortly, instead of the regular mirrors off the side of the truck, the mirrors have to come off the front of the trucks. Because it's just too wide, the doors are too narrow to get in. So we do have to customize the vehicles even further than normal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, from finance, I know that sometimes these trucks can cost a lot more money than normal to.
They do. I mean,
Yeah,
just
so-
a fire engine now, we're looking at $658,000 just for the vehicle. And then you need more for equipment and radios and everything. So we'd asked the town meeting for $675,000. Ladder trucks are going up over $1 million. Our
Yeah.
current ladder truck needed to be on a special crane chassis to lower it because we
Right.
couldn't get the pipes of the old station and the height of the door were too low, so it's on a
Right.
special.
Yeah.
So at the time, that cost extra.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'd probably save in that category with a newer
I would hope so.
station. Yeah.
I sticker shock at the cost of a truck difference in 13 years, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No, thank you.
Mike, could I mention one other thing? I hope I'm not wearing out my welcome. One thing that was not in the the feasibility study that the chief worked on previously with the architect, but we talked about internally when we were working on the budget this year is I'd really like to pursue the idea of adding another bay onto a new station that would be a mechanic's bay and hiring a town employee that would be a mechanic that could work on fire apparatus, but also work on police cruisers, highway, parks, you name it. Because there's a lot, we essentially have to send everything out for private maintenance. But some of the simple stuff, you know, whether it's brakes or oil changes or just simple things like that, we could absolutely do in-house and save money. And I think that's something that it's complicated. You know, we initially kind of went down this road wondering if we could squeeze something into the highway barn, and we immediately said that we got to really plan this out right. So I just want to stick in the back of your head. It's not a final recommendation, but it's just something we've talked about that could save the taxpayers some money. So.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Anybody else, any comments on the overall project itself? You guys good with just, I don't know if a motion is necessary, but maybe I will entertain, I guess, a motion to to allow the chief and the fire building committee to continue on with this project at the location that he suggested tonight.
So moved.
I got a motion, I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous, Scott. You have our
Thank
support.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody. Yeah, thank you very much
Good
for your
luck.
support, and we'll keep you posted and updated.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
All right, next on the agenda, other new business not reasonably anticipated.
I do have one thing that just struck me with, after the town accountant hiring, is we're also going to be hiring a new council on aging director. As you all know, Peggy is retiring. So if you're okay with it, I would suggest, again, if you would delegate authority to me, similar to how we did the town accountant position, where not be a screening committee, just do the initial review, do the initial round of interviews, and whoever we interview, we would forward to you. And
Real quick, I just also, while we're on it, we were talking about the town accountant position. We interviewed 2 candidates tonight. You guys had how many applicants for the position?
do you remember, Stacy, roughly? I know there were a lot.
5 or 6.
Okay.
No, well, was your question how many applicants?
Applicants did you
No,
have?
how many people in total sent in letters or resumes? It was a large number.
Yeah, it was
Okay, so
It was
I just wanted to speak to the process, because I know there's a lot of people in town that get all bent out of shape if we don't have 3 people that we interviewed. And if there's 3 people that weren't qualified for it, then obviously you're not going to interview somebody, just interview them.
Right.
So,
I can speak to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about that. We did not, we internally did not interview a third person because the 2 candidates that we interviewed were here and everybody else was down
Yeah.
here. So if there was another similarly qualified candidate, we
Yeah.
absolutely would have interviewed them and we would have forwarded that person to you. But there was a huge gap between these 2 and everyone else.
I think it gets lost sometimes. People just, they think that you have to delay the process in order to get that third candidate. But if you've got, 20-something, 30-something applications and the people just don't meet the standards, but you have people that clearly do,
Right.
then you interview the 2 that you have. And go from
Exactly.
there.
That's
So,
exactly it.
So just wanted to make that clear, because I'm sure we'll hear something about where the third candidate was. But back to your question about the Council on Aging, I don't have an issue with it. If anybody else on the board has an issue, now would be the time. It seems like we have a consensus that
Yeah.
we're
All right,
okay with the
good.
process
Great.
that worked.
All right,
Seems to
thank
have
you.
worked with the accountant, so let's do it again.
When does the posting close on that? COA director.
I left it open until filled,
Okay.
because honestly, I wasn't sure what the process was going to be here. I think we have 5 or 6 applicants so far.
Oh, great.
Nothing's come in the last week, so everything's come in prior to this week. So I think if we can get on the books, we talked about some dates, if we can get those interviews starting by the end of May, I think that would be great, because we want to make sure somebody has time to obviously go through your interview, and time, if they're already a director, they're going to need to probably give more than 2 weeks' notice before they leave.
So your guess on the timeline is we should have somebody in place potentially by July 1?
We would prefer that.
Okay.
And it would give a little bit of time with the current director before they,
Some overlap.
before she
And what's her
leaves.
retirement date?
July 22nd.
Perfect. Perfect amount of time.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, that works.
Thanks.
Moving on. Old business. May 2nd, 2022 town meeting recap. Doug?
Sure. So I can't lie, I'm pleased. Obviously all the articles that we put on the warrant, we want to pass. And of course, I'm always the most focused on the budget, because that's just operationally the most important thing. And I thought it was great. We had a lot of questions, which I'm happy to always field. And I feel like we provided some good answers, and voters felt comfortable supporting the budget. So I'm very pleased. I was also very pleased with the turnout. 266 people, something right around
Wow.
there. And I know our moderator, he came in earlier, and maybe his pitch at a prior meeting helped get the turnout out, but he was concerned because there was nothing really too controversial on the warrant. He was really worried about hitting the quorum, so we hit that. And just the tone of the meeting, decorum, I thought everything was respectful, and so I'm personally I'm pleased, and I'm not sure if you have other comments as well. Maybe the only other thing I would say is maybe 2 things. One is I did get 1 or 2 calls from residents before town meeting just asking questions about the warrant, and I would just encourage everyone from the public again, don't hesitate to give me a call at Town Hall or even the main number at Town Hall if I'm not available, and we're happy to answer questions from the public. And one of the women who called me just before the town meeting, it was an interesting question because I'm so close to it, I often forget what it might look like to someone else. And her question was all the articles that talked about raise and appropriate as the funding source. She was concerned because she thought each one of those meant we were raising taxes above and beyond Prop 2.5 to fund those things. And I could see why someone might think that because of the jargon. And then when I explained, no, that just means it's coming from taxation and that everything in the budget is balanced within our Prop 2.5 limit. She was like, oh, great, that's all I needed to know. And so just encourage people to reach out and call us. And then the other thing is a couple of people grabbed us on the way out because we talked during the meeting about affordable housing and sort of what that entails. And so there are a few people kind of asking a little bit more just about, does this property qualify, officially on our inventory, and what about that? And so generally those questions will steer to Jen Constable because she has her finger on that pulse better than I do about the town's affordable housing stock. And so some good conversations and discussions came out of it, just ancillary to the actual articles. So we were very pleased.
Yeah, it's actually encouraging to hear. I think you and I did that reading of the town meeting warrant. Have you received any feedback on that? You think it was helpful, hurt?
I honestly haven't heard any feedback.
I mean, we didn't have much turnout for that reading of it. I haven't seen how many views there have been, but I was actually surprised that there were as many questions as there were at town meeting, having been that we had that session, which has never been done before, and put it out there to anybody that had any questions. Feel free to reach out to us at that point. But I mean, maybe people just didn't have their questions ready until town meeting. I don't know, but I was surprised, and I thought maybe that might have allowed us the opportunity to, prepare more in-depth answers for the residents. But I thought you and Jen and you guys did an excellent job answering the questions, being prepared for town meeting. I don't know. Like I said, I was surprised that there were so many questions. I think one of the things that I want to see us try to do as a team, and 5 of us are actually going to meet probably in a few weeks and just go over goals and objectives for the new fiscal year for your office. But I think one of the things that I'd like to try to work on is the message to the residents in a sense of which boards and committees are responsible for which areas. I know a lot of people look to members of the Board of Selectmen as the chief executive, chief elected officials in town, which is the case, but there's a lot of, I get a lot of questions that are, based on, water, PFAS and capacity. I get a lot of questions on the sewer department issues. I get Board of Health, I get highway, I get school. So, I sit back and I'm like, I do everything I can to try to pass people along to the proper authorities and the people that can make decisions on that. But I think it's one of those things that maybe in the coming year we try to improve the message around informing the residents as to who the proper people are. And obviously, like I said, we're more than willing as members of the Board of Selectmen to put them in touch with people that are the proper authorities, but there's certain areas where we don't have the oversight, and we're not in a position to tell any of those other duly elected officials how to do their job or anything like that. So I don't know, it's something I think that might come out of our goals and objectives, but I was surprised because I think some of the questions that were asked were kind of ones that, if you reached out to a water commissioner at some point or a sewer commissioner, and I also go back to I wonder how many people watch the meetings, like people were saying, I saw some comments online that people were happy that some questions were asked because they felt as though they got answers that they would never have had before. But literally every item in that warrant was read, reviewed, gone over. I was surprised that people were saying that they didn't know any background information on the town planner. I think you've talked about the town planner since the day you walked in this door. I think that was the first thing we agreed on, was that it was a need. And we've been talking about it for 3 years, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, no offense, but at a lot of these meetings where we've gone into detail exactly what that town planner was going to do. So I was really shocked that was the question, and the concern was that there wasn't enough detail as to what the town planner was going to do. So I don't know, it was surprising to me, but maybe it's how we put our message out there. But I would say to anybody, if you say you're not informed or you don't know something about it, the first thing I'm going to ask, or I think anybody should ask, is do you watch the selectmen's meetings? Because that's where everything is talked about. And since I've been on this board, well, maybe not since I've been on this board, but since it became a new board a few years back, everything has been done out here in the open, and every single thing that's been on any kind of an agenda or any kind of a warrant has been discussed 100% in the open. So, I don't know, just a couple thoughts. I don't know, it gets frustrating at times, but I think something if we can try to improve our messaging coming out of town hall throughout the next year in general on some of those areas. So,
And also to put out what you've said to me several times is if there's anything anybody wants on one of these agendas, they just have to email you. What is your
yeah,
email?
they can
Mike?
email me. It's MOLOUGHLIN.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
It's on the
right
website, okay. You're-
I had to spell my name for a second.
Right, right, and,
What is my email?
right, so,
Wait, my name.
yeah, so you're in charge of what goes on the agenda. So residents can,
Yeah,
email you
it's
and
been one of those things,
consider it.
Lori, and you and I
Yeah.
have talked about this in the past. Anybody has any, we don't have open forum. We don't have open forum in town because open forum is really, in essence, it's an open meeting law violation because a resident or a customer, as I usually say, if they get up there, they can ask us a question, they can say something in open forum, but because we don't know what the topic is and we didn't put it on the agenda that we're going to talk about it, we can't respond to it. So we just sit there, and I think it would create more frustration for the resident because they're looking for answers, and they only have the time to come in at the time that they have to come in. So they're standing before us, they present us the issue, and we just sit there nodding and say, hey, great, we'll take it under consideration, and we'll talk to you, we'll have you come back at some other date when it's on the agenda. But, any resident, I've never turned a resident down, and honestly, I've never had a resident ask me to put anything specifically on an agenda. So if any resident has anything that they want to talk about, feel free, shoot me an email, phone call, come by and talk to me, and I'll put it on the agenda. Give me the information, and we'll discuss it. And if I can't answer, your issue at the time, then we'll put it on an agenda to discuss as an entire board. So, and that's always also been the offer that's been made by Doug and his staff since he's been here. Is, I think Scott Curtis mentioned open door policy. You've had an open door policy since the second you got here, and I think at one point you had your cell phone number on the door even for people to call you if they had an issue. And I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that people actually reached out to you before town meeting this year, because I think that's the first time I've ever heard that. So, so good. So maybe we're making some headway there. But I'd like to continue that dialogue with the residents, because a lot of times people look to social media to find out their answers, and I think we've all found that social media is half-truths presented at times by people that don't know the information, that aren't interpreting the information in the proper manner. And when they talk to somebody that is an expert in the field, they feel better about it. I mean, perfect example, raise and appropriate. Nobody's raising taxes, but if that was on social media, God, you'd have the elected board of social media select people, telling everybody that that means they're raising your taxes, so you have to go. But in any case, that's my rant. But we are an open door policy with this board and with this administration. So please, I'd like for people to come see us and talk to us and give us a chance to fix whatever issue you might have, or send you in the right direction. So.
yeah, I had one more thing I wanted to add. Speaking of the town planner, a lot of residents came up to me after the meeting and yesterday, and they're like, why do we need a town planner? We're, there's gonna make our taxes go up, da, da, da. Can you give the top 3 reasons why a town planner will actually paying that salary will save us money?
Jen, there you go.
Jen?
Very tired assistant administrator, how about that?
Yeah.
Am I good from
You're good from there. You're good.
Yeah, I mean, the town has a lot in motion. A couple of years ago, the town adopted its master plan, and I use that as a point of reference because I think it sort of frames the work nicely on multiple levels. So in that master plan, there are different areas that a planner would help assist in moving the town forward and implementing, whether it's transportation, housing, economic development, and developing the 40R district that was adopted in 2017. The town planner would help seek grant funds for that, would help apply for grants, provide significant technical assistance to the zoning board of appeals, the planning board. That would also result in I'm giving you more than
Yeah, that's okay.
there are multiple benefits. Would help save the town money, because right now, our land use council attends almost every zoning board of appeal meeting, which wouldn't be necessary if we had the planner there to provide that technical assistance to the board. I mean, those are some of
Yeah,
the-
no, and I mean, there's a lot to it, but I think what some people that might not realize it don't understand is, you know, I'm very active in the state association, so I'm regularly meeting with all of my peers from other communities. And you should see the look of shock and like almost dismay when I tell a colleague, oh, we don't have a planning department. It's like, I mean, it's a basic function in a municipal organization. So think if you're a homeowner or a local business and you're like, maybe I want to put an addition on my house or have like an in-law apartment, or I want to know if this new business I want to open, is that allowed in that district? You know, you come and you want to talk to the planner. Oh, sorry, we don't have that. So, like, who do you talk to? You know, you want to be either friendly for your residential customers or for potential business customers. And then I think the other thing, too, is just being proactive instead of reactive. There's been a lot of good planning work done, like Jen's talked about some of our plans, but as the town has sort of battled a bit with certain, say it's a large housing project, things like that, we're being reactive, whereas opposed to a planner helps the town be proactive in facilitating the types of development that fits within the community's character and protects our resources, as well as other non-economic development things that might help with park projects. Or, I mean, we could talk a lot about it, but it really is, I can't stress it enough, it's a basic function in any kind of modern, effective municipal organization.
Well, I love that you just said that one word there, modern, and I get a lot of pushback as far as the amount of staff that we've added around the town administrator over the last few years, and not pushback, but questions. And one of the things I always try to emphasize is that if you want to stay the same and you want to be stagnant in government, then fine. We can leave it as a one-person town administration, one person doing everything, and there's going to be a lot of things that they're not going to be able to get. We added the assistant town administrator, which has helped immensely. But as we kept going with that, we found that there's other things that between the two of you guys, I mean, you're paid at 40 hours a week, and you guys both probably put in 60, 70 hours a week, and there's still things that, by no fault of your own, you're missing just because time is a thing. And if you have another body in there to put something else on, then, other projects on, then that's what you got to do. And, to your point, to run a modern municipality, and a municipality that's going to continue to change and evolve over time, then you have to add positions that are able to see these things, effortlessly, because you have experts in the field. So, so that's really, the thing that I emphasize when people ask us about, the layers that we've added. But it's a professional organization, and a professional organization, you have to continue to change with the times and the demands that are on the administration's office. So with that, anybody else have any other comments?
Can I just say with the planner, all the plans have always been on file in the town clerk's office, and people come in and they ask questions. We don't have answers.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
So
Yeah.
to have somebody who's an expert that they can go to, not having to try to catch up with the planning board or the zoning board, to have someone is going to be crucial. Just for the everyday citizen who wants an answer, who wants to be able to look at a plan and say, well, yeah, but explain it to me. Because yet, it's in the town clerk's office. You can't explain it. I mean, you can look at the picture and go, eh.
Yeah, it's not the clerk's expertise.
No.
That's not their area of expertise. And
So to have somebody
Yeah.
that is schooled in that, who can give an honest opinion and who can give all the information that they're looking for in one shot is going to mean a lot.
And it's gonna lower the level of frustration, I think, that residents and developers have potentially when they come to town. But I think also too is, I think we've noticed in the past some different projects where steps may have been missed, and I think steps may have been missed because this person thought this person was handling it, and this person thought this department was handling it. Well, now you have a centralized person. You have one point person that's running that entire first conversation with the developer or resident. And then where it gets disseminated from there is whichever way they go, but we have that singular person as running the point. Whereas now, I don't know, if people go to the building department, they go to the clerk's office, they go to water, they go to sewer, they go to all these different places, and, you know, maybe things get lost along the way, and you go from there, and you end up in spots where procedures weren't necessarily followed correctly, but having that singular person running the operation, I think, is paramount, so. Anybody else? I forgot where we are. Are we under other old business, not
Town meeting
recap?
recap, I think.
I have no other old business.
Okay, so town administrator's report and correspondence.
Great, thank you.
Put Allison asleep.
I just wanted to read a letter that was sent to the board from the secretary of the Rockland Allied Veterans Council, their Memorial Day committee. Honorable Board of Selectmen, the Allied Veterans Council is requesting permission to hold our Memorial Day observance at the Veterans Memorial at 11 a.m. on May 30th, and they'd like to extend an invitation to all the members of the Board of Selectmen to attend the Memorial Day observance. I assume you're all good with them conducting that.
Yep.
And then, just as far as what's been going on here, I'll be quick. Obviously, town meeting preparation was the focus of the last several weeks. We're also in the middle of union negotiations, so that's going well. Haven't agreed to anything yet, but we're working on it. I've talked a bit about the police station roof project, so that is now complete. So we got their final inspection, that is all good. And again, we got surprisingly very good competitive pricing on that, so that came in under budget. We'll be returning some of those funds back. I've also been working with Jen and Dave Taylor, and also some external stakeholders on some potential infrastructure grants. So we're working on that in the background. When there's more to share, we'll be sharing that with you. And then lastly, I know I am a broken record, but I just can't stress enough how much work and how complicated the McCarthy Farm grant compliance has turned out to be. A lot of people are helping out. In particular, Dave Taylor and the highway crew, they've done a lot of cleanup on the property, some selective demolition, and then most importantly, they're constructing the parking area right now, which we had to wait because we had to go through conservation, get a notice of intent, and wait for the appeal period and all that. But this parking lot has to be completed, and signage has to be installed prior to June 1 for us to submit it. So Dave's cranking away right now as we speak, but we're getting there. And then lastly, we have to have a conservation restriction on that property. And not only that property, we also have, the state requires, because they have this leverage of holding our $400,000 check over our head, any other property that the town acquired with CPA funds has to have a conservation restriction, and we have to get that in before June 1 if we want to get our money. And so we knew that when we bought the Hartsif Park property with CPA funds, we knew we needed to get a CR on that eventually, but again, this grant is sort of accelerating the pressure on that. So it's a complicated one because, again, there's a lot of stakeholders. We have the nonprofit group, the Wildlands Trust, that's going to hold the CR and enforce it on the McCarthy Farm in perpetuity, and I've also initiated working with them on the Hartsif Park land, but I'm including discussions with the Rec Department, the Parks Commissioners, and our Land Use Council, to make sure everybody's on the same page and the right needs are being met, and we're moving quickly. So hopefully this will be, maybe the next meeting on the 17th, I'll give one more update, and then knock on wood, we'll get it all done properly by the June 1 deadline, and I'm really excited to show you that $400,000 check when we get it, because it's been a lot of work. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen. The opinions and comments of only the individual member. Selectwoman Childs.
Well, I'm really glad that the town meeting went so well. I'm glad that everybody's happy with that. And I would also, I don't know what the steps are to do this, but to perhaps change the name of our group to the Select Board rather than Select Men's Board.
I have absolutely no issue with it.
Can I speak to that? I do think it's a good idea, but unfortunately, it's a cumbersome process. So that would involve a charter amendment. So we'd have to propose something on a town meeting warrant, and then it would have to get sent to the state legislature for the legislature to approve it and the governor to sign it, because we have a special act charter. So there's,
Okay,
it can absolutely be done, but it takes unfortunately more than a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
okay. So, in next year's town meeting, or maybe?
If the board wants to do it, you can certainly
Okay.
do it.
All right.
Yeah, we just end up putting it on the warrant.
Yep.
I know Jen's going through that a little bit and how, where it's passed, but the charter hasn't been adopted by the Attorney General's office yet, so.
Yeah, it's momentarily,
Yeah.
momentary.
Yeah.
And I might even suggest putting it on a future agenda so the board could discuss it in public.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Selectwoman Childs. Donna?
I just want to thank all the people that did come out for town meeting. It was an excellent showing, and I'd love to see more people come. But the fact that we made the quorum so early is really exciting, because we've had nights when we've stood up there with our phones calling everybody and his brother. So I love it. I hope that it's a sign that more people are going to get involved.
Thank you, Donna. Selectman Needham?
If I wanted to, I want to follow up on basically the overall theme that most of us commented when speaking about what we found favorable, or a favorable attribute with the new accountant hire, Mr. Curtis, was the importance of teamwork and being able to work together. And so I wanted to particularly commemorate today, because Select Woman Childs is here and able to join us, and we are all here as a board together. And I'm very much looking forward to this year, all of us working together. So I decided we should commemorate that, and I would like to say, may the 4th be with us.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. I thought with Larry being gone,
I know.
that the cheese factor would go too.
I
But
know.
I guess Tiffany's picking up
May
right
the
on.
4th
Yeah,
be
yeah.
with us.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well said. Vice Chairman Nyman.
I have nothing else to add, but
Who can
thank
say
you.
anything after that? May the 4th be with you. Thank you, Kara. Yeah, no, I just, kind of what Donna said, I was really impressed, actually, when you just said 266 people. I had it estimated at about 180, but I was thrilled with how quickly people showed up to it as well, and we were able to get the meeting started. And, you said that you were pleased with the results. I was very pleased with the results. I felt very much supported by the members of the community the other night, and, we take a lot of satisfaction in that. And, we work hard as a board, and the past board worked very hard, and I know this board, I'm looking forward to getting to know Ms. Shortall and Ms. Childs, and, getting their thoughts on what their priorities are, and can't wait to work with you guys and make a difference, continue to make a difference in the town. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor? Selectman Childs?
Yes.
Selectman Shortall?
Yes.
Selectman Needham?
Yes.
Selectman Nyman?
Yes.
And myself. Unanimous. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.